Hi everyone, today I have a review of the FMS 112 scale Land Rover Series 2. And most people that would buy this vehicle will probably drive it once or twice and then kind of let it sit pretty on a shelf. But I wanted to do a review from the perspective of someone that actually drives it quite a lot. And just some of the things you might want to look for when you get one of these. Common parts to break, all that kind of good stuff. So you can see from the little wrappers and stuff that are still on here, this one is fresh out of the box, brand new. And I do have another one that I've been driving a lot and working on. It's under a little bit of maintenance right now, and I will get into that in a second. But I decided to pick this one up to kind of help aid in the visuals for this review. The 112 scale line by FMS is a line that's more geared towards scale accuracy and scale detail rather than full-on performance. So you'll see that they have leaf suspension, very scale, like period correct wheels, though they are a little bit oversized, but period correct nevertheless. A lot more functionality in the lights, a lot more detail in the body. You can see fully painted. And this does come in 3 colors, yellow, green, and blue. Green is flat, and then the yellow and the blue are gloss, and the paint quality and the gloss is actually done quite well. I have been pretty happy with the quality of FMS paint jobs. But you can see that they have a lot more features, like the doors open, the hoods pop open, and all the electronics and battery goes in there. Windshield folds down, tailgate opens, steering wheel moves on its own servo, fully upholstered and padded seats, full interior with all the little details. So they're really going for that scale model kind of appearance with this truck, where it's pretty much a scale model you can drive and play with, which is pretty cool. So all of those moving parts, they have a satisfying click and snap to everything, so you don't really feel like you're breaking stuff when you're playing with it. Though they are kind of clipping into each other, so I wouldn't open and close them very often. But for when you want to occasionally open it for a photo or something, they should last quite a long time. It also has really nice details, like the bumper has like little holes where they would normally. Same thing with the grill. It is also a metal grill, metal mesh grill with a metal Land Rover badge. The Land Rover badge in the back is also metal. All the lights, brake lights, blinkers, headlights, marker lights, everything, which is very cool. The mirrors are also actually reflective. Windshield, even the rear view mirrors back there. It's just a lot of nice detail on this truck, and it does look really, really nice. And because of that, most people will just use this truck for kind of driving a couple times and sitting on their shelf as a nice little model to look at. But Land Rovers were kind of designed to be driven, so I wanted to drive mine. And the main appeal for these is the body, because they aren't really compatible with a lot of other bodies. Basically, the body it comes with is the body that you're going to have to stay with without a lot of modification, mainly because the length of the chassis are different. The chassis is very scale looking, as you can see here, in its layout. There's no body posts or body clips or anywhere like that. So you're going to have to get creative if you want to put different bodies on it. And because I'm a big Land Rover fan, that was the big draw for me for this truck. You don't see a lot of Series 2s, you don't see a lot of Series 3s. Most times you see a Defender, you'll see most times you see a Land Rover, you'll see the Defender, which is this truck's younger brother. But I quite like the boxy, chubby cheeks and the narrow set eyes. I think it looks really goofy and cute. And being able to set up the body in multiple configurations also adds to the playability and fun as well. You can have in this convertible setup, this pickup setup. It comes with the screws and the screwdriver to set it up all these different tops. And a full station wagon, like hard top setup, which looks very nice as well. But this is kind of where I'll kind of go quickly into some of the minor complaints I have on the visuals of this truck. The first thing is the hood does not sit flush. You can see all the electronics sit in there, and some of the electronics in the battery especially rises above the hood line. So when you shut the hood, one won't shut all the way, and it'll be a little bit crooked, and as you drive along, it will pop open, which is a little bit annoying. And you can see it just won't sit properly. So with this Series 2, I did have to modify some of the stuff in here to get this hood to sit flush and also all the way down. The other little nitpick that I have is with the SUV body on it. Technically, it should have a door back here instead of a tailgate, which will also give you the little window there. And it just doesn't. So it doesn't look completely scale accurate, I don't think. So that is another little bit of a complaint that I have personally, which is why I run mine in the pickup truck setup. The other thing is the holes in the bed don't look super scale, especially for shocks that don't actually do anything other than just purely for appearance. There's no damping in those shocks. You can see it's quite bouncy. But for a shock that really doesn't do anything, I think this is a bit of a sacrifice for the scale appearance. Though if you have the SUV top on it or have a bunch of stuff in the bed, you aren't really going to notice, so it's not that big of a deal. The other thing is the mud flaps never seem to come out consistently left to right. You can see this one always seems to be molded properly, and the other one always seems to come out deformed. You can see on the driver's side on this one it's deformed, whereas on my original one the driver's side is fine and the passenger side is deformed. So that is a little bit annoying. And then finally, there's a little bit of inconsistency in some of the build quality. Like these lights here are sunken in, and they're clearly not supposed to be, so I don't know what's up with that. My original one I've driven quite a lot, and they aren't sunken in at all, and they don't even get pushed in, so I don't know. I really don't know what's up with that. But overall, I think the truck does still look pretty good. And with that leaf suspension, very scale accurate leaf suspension, by the way. Leaf under axle, very scale accurate. I think overall it does look very, very nice. Even under the truck looks very scale accurate. So very happy with the appearance. And while we're on the topic of appearance, let's do a quick size comparison of the truck. So here it is next to its sister vehicle, the FJ45. You can see the chassis is the same size, but because the FJ has much wider fenders and much narrower hood, at least in like first glance, like it has a thinner fender, so it looks like it's smaller, but they're the same width. The length is quite different though. The Land Rover is a bit of a shorter wheelbase, and because of the longer bed on the FJ, this is also a longer truck in general. But they do seem to be about the same scale to each other. I don't think they're 1/12 scale. I think realistically they're more like 1/14 scale. But to each other, they are pretty similar. Here's their FCX 18, which again claims to be an 18 scale, but realistically I think is more of like a 14 scale or 16 scale. And you can see this truck is also a bit longer wheelbase and longer in general. So that's really funny that the supposedly smaller 18 scale vehicle is larger than the 12 scale Land Rover. And then of course the original FCX 24, shorter wheelbase, but still about the same length. And just for reference, here it is next to your typical 10 scale RC crawler. So before I talk about the driving, let's actually watch it drive around and then come back and I'll give you some of my thoughts. I think terrain like this is where this truck really comes on its own. You can see it looks fantastic, and this is fairly rough terrain. Some of these routes are as tall as the truck, if not taller. And yeah, it's not gonna crawl over stuff like your FCX 24 or some of your other like portal axle, more capable crawlers are gonna do. But you can throw it in low gear. It's a little sticky. Pick a good line. And it'll climb over stuff even with that trailer attached to the back. And I love that the suspension flexes in a realistic manner and then picks up wheels when it exceeds the travel. So in certain situations like this, the 2-speed is actually really nice because in a lot of mini crawlers or just crawlers in general, the 2-speed just tends to be a gimmick. But in this truck, it's used quite a lot. And it's actually quite useful. So if crawling won't get you up, so as you saw from the driving video, it is surprisingly capable for the style of truck that this is, with its big, heavy, large, just scale-looking hard body, the very scale leaf suspension, solid, like straight axles, very period correct vintage tires and wheels. It just doesn't look like it'd be a very fun truck to drive off-road, but it is surprisingly capable. And surprisingly a lot of fun to drive. So if you expect it to drive like an FCX 18 or just like a hardcore rock crawler, like some of the Furatech stuff, like climbing vertical walls and stuff, you're gonna be deeply disappointed. But if you want that kind of scale, like role play kind of experience of driving your little Land Rover on a little adventure, driving over pretty scale looking terrain, picking the right lines, picking the right gear, it just adds to all the fun of this truck. And I think that gearing is also done very nicely. The low gear is set up very well, makes this truck go over obstacles and have the torque to go over stuff with fair bit of ease, as long as you can get the traction. And then the high gear is fast enough for like a slow walking pace, though I should note that the high gear is still slower than the high gear and even the FCX 24. So if you're expecting like a really fast or kind of faster pace, walking pace truck, this is not really going to be it. But I don't really mind the low speed of this truck too much because, again, I think it adds to the scale experience of this truck. I think the real Land Rover Series 2, I think has like 50 horsepower, 50 or 80 horsepower. So they're not very fast or powerful trucks in real life. So that really low gear and the relatively low top speed, I feel like adds to kind of the scale experience. And if you are lucky enough to come upon a kind of a downhill, kicking into neutral for a second, letting it roll, it does roll very nicely. The transmission and all the driveline is very smooth, and everything seems to work very well. It does have full metal bearings all the way through, so that kind of helps with its coasting and smoothness. The transmission is all metal gears, and they're very small gears, which is why they're very, very loud. And this is the transmission here. And I will talk more about this in a second. But the position of the transmission, all the driveline components is also very realistic. You can see the chassis here without the body does look pretty realistic, and then with the transmission sitting up here where the engine would be, even down to the chassis, it's a very scale looking chassis. So as long as you want to do that kind of driving, I think this would be like the perfect truck for you. As far as reliability and working on the truck, it is a Land Rover, so that hood's gonna pop up at some point. And that's kind of the reason why this one over here is naked, because this transmission actually blew out. And the main reason it blew out was because the screw holding the motor in backed out while I was not even off-road. I was driving it on-road, just taking it for a walk. Screw backed out, and even though the gears are metal in here, it's a very complicated transmission. There's a lot of gears in here, and the gears are very, very small. So even if your gears go out of mesh for a little bit, they will completely devastate your gears. So that is something to watch out for. If you want to be extra careful and extra diligent, maybe you can just take apart the transmission. As soon as you get it to Loctite those screws, though that is a lot of work. The other option is when or if your transmission blows out, you can either purchase an entirely assembled transmission from FMS, or just get the gears from FMS to replace the gears yourself. Though that's the other kind of build quality thing that I've noticed is, for this transmission in particular, I can't replace the gears in this, at least with the tools that I have, because this set screw from the factory was stripped out, so I cannot remove this drive cup, which means I can't remove all the gears. So I will probably have to end up replacing this whole transmission, which is a little bit of a bummer. And it's not expensive, but it's not cheap either. It's like $30, which I'm hoping it doesn't happen very often, because I would really like not to spend $30 very often for the same darn part. And unfortunately, because this is a platform that's mostly centered around kind of shelf queens, there isn't a lot of aftermarket support for this, both from FMS and just aftermarket in general. So there aren't real good upgrades for this as far as I'm aware. So you're pretty much just stuck with the stock transmission. But with that said, all the gears in the axle, all the gears in the transfer case, everything is metal. So that is a little bit of a reassurance for some of the other like simpler assemblies. It's just in the transmission here, they're very, very tiny gears, and there's a lot of them. So I think even just replacing the gears is like $20, and you do have to dig quite far in here to get to it. I've personally been enjoying this truck quite a lot, and even with that little transmission failure, I still really, really love this truck, and I'm very excited to get it fixed up and driving again very soon. So as for if this truck is right for you, few things you should keep in mind, like I said, is do you like the Land Rover body? Are you okay with the limitations of a big body leaf spring truck? And are you okay with a truck with little to no aftermarket support? If you happen to be the kind of weirdo that I am and check all those boxes, then this will be a perfect truck for you. Every cent you pay for this truck will feel worth it. But if you're someone that wants more performance out of their trucks, I think something like the FCX 18 is a much better truck than this truck. It comes in at a lower price point. It is still fairly scale looking while still being able to have a lot more performance. Has a more durable transmission and axles and driveline. A lot of aftermarket support for this truck. So kind of depends on what you're really looking for. I think the main audience that this really appeals to are people that want very scale looking vehicles or just Land Rover fans, which is why I think this truck, whenever there's a FMS sale, holiday sale, or any sort of sale going on, this truck always gets a significant sale applied to it. So if you're not super desperate to get this truck right away, I would probably wait for a holiday sale because you are pretty much guaranteed to be able to pick one of these up for a pretty good deal. And I think at $200 for all the features it comes with, it's already worth it. It's definitely more worth it, I think, than the Toyota, which comes in at $50 more than this for pretty much the same features. So I think it's already a pretty good price point, but you are able to find it on sale pretty often. So at that point, I think it becomes a no-brainer to pick it up. But I've been enjoying mine quite a bit. I can't wait to get this one fixed up and hit the trails again. But until then, I hope everyone enjoyed this video, found it entertaining or informative. Hopefully I wasn't rambling incoherently for too long. But I hope everyone has a great day and have fun with RC.